So welcome to Leading with GenAI. Unfortunately, Pat's not joining us today, but we have Geoff from a very tropical place. Geoff, where are you?
Good morning. Yeah, estoy en Tenerife. I'm in Tenerife, and it's El Sol. It's the sun is shining. It's a very lovely place. Palm trees behind me. But I'm here and really interested to find out all about AI in Finland today, Rob. So it's
Great.
good to be here.
And good that you mentioned that because we have a very special Christmas treat for everybody, and we have Karoliina Partanen joining us today. Welcome, Karoliina. And I'm just do a quick intro for Karoliina.
Thank you.
Well, Karoliina is basically a very accomplished business leader here in Finland. She's very experienced in scaling tech businesses, is a known public speaker here with a lot of international experience, and just voted as an AI influencer, or the AI influencer, I believe, here in Finland, which I'm sure she'll tell us more about shortly. I loved a quote that I found on your LinkedIn, Karoliina, which was, "You are now shaping Finland's destiny as the world's AI powerhouse," which is, let's set the scene. Yeah. A little bit more information on Karoliina, which is, she's an innovative and energetic leader here on the AI Finland network. And that is basically part of the Finnish technical industries sector here. Really looking at advancement of artificial intelligence within Finnish organizations. And, we're going to hear more about your background and more about what you're up to as well. So welcome, Karoliina.
Thank you.
Well, why don't we just dive in, and perhaps you could explain a little bit more about what is AI Finland?
Sure. So AI Finland is a network for companies and any organizations interested in utilizing AI for their business benefits. And we are all about accelerating innovation, not just the adoption or using the American hyperscalers to write faster emails and so on, but actually embedding AI to our service and product innovations, and that way increasing our revenue and actually creating entirely new revenue streams and business models.
Great. And so, I think there's a lot of cool stuff coming out of Finland at the moment. I think it'd be quite nice to maybe set the scene a little bit about what we're up to here. We've seen some quite high profile cases like the acquisition of Silo AI this year, but I'm sure there's other cool stuff in the works and coming through. Could you maybe elaborate on some of the innovations here? And I know that whilst we focus on Gen AI here, you're also looking at robotics and machine learning and lots of different adoptions.
For sure. Well, the latest great news came last week. We actually got the AI factory to Finland. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of AI factories, but we have them all over the Europe or EU, and they are kind of like a innovation hubs around the topic of AI, and they are like an ecosystem of researchers, startups, enterprises who are getting together to get everything out of AI possibilities and sharing innovations for commercial purposes and attracting also investors from abroad. And now we are getting one to Finland. And we already have one really great benchmark in Paris. So, and they have created thousands of new employees or jobs to France and Europe. So we are really looking forward to it, and also the impact it will hopefully create to whole Finland. And the other great news was something called Ellis Institute. We got another in Finland quite recently. and that's entirely concentrating on academia and AI research, but that's practically the basis for everything else that can happen, basis for all the innovation. But we have been quite bad at commercializing technical innovations, so that's something we need to pay attention to. But at least we have excellent basis for other things to come, and creating that commercial success for our companies. And I also have to point out a third really great advantage we have here, which is green energy. And that's the reason why we see again and again investments for new data centers worth billions of dollars and euros. And all the hyperscalers at the moment are building new data centers to Finland. And obviously, we would not like to stick with the just creating, AI compute, but we would like to attract R&D type of functions here with these data centers.
We've talked before about the supercomputers up in Kajaani, for example, and I think that's linked to the AI factory as well, right?
Yes, that's actually in the very heart of that AI factory, and that's around which the entire AI factory will be built.
And what I love about that is, as well as big institutions like academia and large corporates, it's also really good access for small to mid-sized businesses too, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
There has been some target groups for which this AI factory is meant to be used for. For instance, healthcare is one, and all startups, manufacturing, agriculture, which is kind of surprising, but it's also very important for our what's the word?
Food security,
or survival.
Survival. Yeah. Yeah, a good basic word, survival, right? Yeah, Maslow's needs, hierarchy of needs. Yeah. So,
exactly.
Geoff and Pat submitted a couple of questions knowing that you were coming today. And I think based on what you're just saying in terms of, this attracting the inward investment, attracting the, the research and the facilities around that with AI Finland and with the Ellis Institute. But how does, this comes to their question, which was the first question I think that came through from Geoff was, how does Europe compete with the US? Because we're reading about OpenAI all day long, etc. But then Pat came back with a counter question, which is, how does Finland actually compete with our, I'd say, nearer neighbours, such as Estonia, with a very digital savvy government there, and lots of innovation, maybe lower salaries and taxes too. And then where, Geoff is not always in the tropics, when he's back in the UK, is a larger economy. It tends to attract more inward investment from international climes. So how do we compete here in Finland, where I'm based as well? It's this knowledge-based economy. As you say, lots of great R&D, not necessarily very good commercialization. So, what have we got to do to be competitive, and what are we doing? Yeah.
That's an excellent question. I think everything goes back to R&D, which sounds boring, but if we have some excellent innovations that we do have, technical innovations, it's actually, I claim or argue, it will be easier to commercialize excellent technical innovations than other way around. So that's something we can learn from our partners, for instance, from other new Nordic countries. And we are now launching New Nordics AI Network, where we can exchange information and best practices. And if we really pay attention to our weaknesses, we can actually create something great. And since we now have the infrastructure, we have the energy, we have the data centers, we have AI factory, and some EU money floating in. We already have all the digital skills and governance who kind of are on top of things. They actually understand the importance, and we also have great companies who are already producing stuff globally. So the only small thing we need to do is to come up with a few commercial products for every enterprise and for our scale ups, or actually scale ups already do have the excellent service innovations, and they just need some money to grow their business into a global scale. So I think we have a pretty good foundation for the upcoming great growing phases.
So Geoff, you've been working a lot with companies in the UK where you've been influencing mid-sized organizations and larger organizations for digital transformation. What are your feelings about innovation in the UK and and R&D, and maybe how we might be able to coordinate and cooperate better with business?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think in the UK we've not had a problem building some great chip companies like ARM, for example, which we then let it go to SoftBank. We've not had a problem building things like DeepMind, which we then let that go to Google. And I wonder if this is a problem for us in Europe, is that we can build some fantastic technology, some fantastic companies, and then we let our American friends come in and buy them from us. But I wonder, Karoliina, whether the sort of future for European companies, with UK, Finland, or elsewhere in Europe, is actually around taking this great technology that people like OpenAI and everybody's created, these foundation models, video models, all of these kind of things. And actually, where we're going to do really well in Europe is to use that technology then to build products, which I think is what you were just hinting there. And how do we get out? And what sort of, I'm interested, what sort of things you're doing in a startup ecosystem in Finland to help startups take all these great models and things that are coming from the US and building fantastic products around them?
Yeah. So sorry, can you repeat the actual question?
Yeah, sure. Is what can we do around our startup ecosystems, whether it's in Finland, the UK, or other European countries, to take all this brilliant technology we're seeing coming from mostly from the United States, and how do we get AI startups?
Yes, right. So we have identified two needs for our startups. It's not actually money or funding they need, but it's actually revenue funding, or what they actually need is customers in very early stage, so that they can develop their product and their business idea and get confirmation on the need there is or is not on the market. So that's something we can do as a AI network of hundreds of companies. We can find matches between early stage startups and the established organizations who have several business needs. So that's one thing, and also sharing best practices and knowledge from the from successful scale-ups, like what have they done in order to make market entry to US, or what have they done to tackle the regulation, and that's the sort of need. So having actually more connections between companies from big enterprises who want to buy their products, and also getting the learnings from successful scale-ups.
I like what you're saying there in terms of getting the startups to engage with the established firms and to confirm the need. Interesting. I'll pose a question on this, which is, what are you seeing in terms of balance between startups that are coming up with, say, they've identified a problem, whether it's real or not, and then they've got an innovative solution. So they've done ideation, they've got a solution, versus established companies that are effectively reverse pitching to say, this is a problem we're having. Can you come up with a solution for us?
Yeah, I think we need both. We don't have to choose either or. And we're actually organizing pitching events where the startups from the 3 categories get to pitch their ideas to enterprises and mid caps from all sectors. And yeah, well, that's one thing, and also companies are very eager to find alternative solutions that not their competitors have access to or they are not aware of. So yeah, that's very important. And why not also having reverse pitching? But it might be more difficult to find matches in that order.
And I should say that, Karoliina, I enjoyed the AI Finland gala that you had earlier in the year, and definitely saw everything from very large established companies through to, smaller businesses and startups. And even one of the startups at Null Venture we worked with, Lexifon, was in the background doing some of the voice announcements, etc., amongst our key humans such as yourself hosting the event. So that was really nice to see that mix, an eclectic mix of different size organizations and so many different industries present as well.
Thank you.
So, going forward as well, I think that there's some cool stuff coming out of Finland. Are there any particular companies that you might want to highlight that, for example, for Pat and Geoff, who are consulting with organizations about adopting GenAI, and then for someone like Null Venture and where I work, where we're building solutions for clients, and we obviously will adopt and use what's built out there as well. And also, I'm making investments as well. So I'm working with AI Capital in terms of AI investments. So maybe you could, if it's not too confidential, give us an idea of some of the actual firms coming out of Finland that we can cooperate with or seeking investment, etc.
Sure. Well, actually, we are now making a Finnish AI landscape study. We've been going through 500 startups from Finland whose business model is entirely based on AI, and we have found like 30 most promising ones, and we will create a report where we will reveal all of them. I am not allowed to tell those names yet, but I can name a couple of more established companies. So first of all, we have some really good enterprises and listed firms who are really well recreating themselves. For instance, F-Secure is tackling one of the biggest challenges of the era of AI, which is fraud messages and fraud emails and stuff. So they have brilliant new service which will recognize fraud text messages that fake that scammers are sending to consumers. So that's one thing. And then we have clearly several manufacturing companies like Kone. Their revenue, like half of it, is already coming from AI businesses or like services enabled by AI, and Sandvik, who is producing some mining vehicle. They are already enabled by AI. And what else? Well, also on the service side, for instance, our largest grocery chains are also using data in multiple ways and coming up with new great use cases for AI. And of course, all our scale-ups, they are almost all of them are based on data and AI. We have ICEYE, who are producing satellites, and they are collecting data from Earth and selling that data to insurance companies and so on. Then we have Avon, who are creating like services on top of data. And then we have, of course, Relex, who are creating optimization service for logistics and many, many more. But if we go back to some of the startups, I could possibly mention at least Confidential Mind, and they enable using the large language models on the edge or even in own computer or own server instead of using cloud. So that's one really, really cool one. And I forgot to mention entirely one very promising field, and that's health sector and health technology, which is quite surprising due to the regulation. You could imagine that the regulation would have inhibited all the innovation on health tech sector, but it has not. But we have really, really promising scale-ups like Euphoria and Optomed and Enteri. And also one really new one, Gosta Labs, which is growing really quickly.
Well, yeah, that's amazing, and such a broad range, and interesting when you said with someone like Connor, who obviously we know for making things like cranes and lifts, and I know that they've always been quite modern in their marketing in terms of moving people as opposed to manufacturing product. But if 50% is really sort of AI enabled on their revenue, when they're selling cranes that cost millions, then that's really interesting. But I think it's driving it for them as well. So I understand that they've sold an awful lot of cranes to the US lately because they've needed to replace the Chinese cranes. It's not because they're manufactured in China, it's because the software was made in China. So it's all about the data again. So that's really cool.
Yes.
And what we'll do is when that report is out, we'll share the link on the podcast, on the report, and then anyone viewing this can go through and see who these 30 on the watch list of the 500 are at least. Well, that's a great insight of what's going on, and I think go back to what did we say at the beginning, that you're shaping Finland's destiny as the world's AI powerhouse. So good on you, Karoliina. Thank you very much for those efforts.
Could I just, Rob, just chuck in a question on here? And kind of just interested just to talk a little bit about collaboration across the EU and also with us, not in the EU anymore, but in the UK. So European countries, what's the opportunities, do you think, there for us all to collaborate on AI projects? Is that around AI startups? Is it around, quite big? You look at some of the stuff the US are doing very well. It's those really big AI projects around building foundation models, those kind of things. Is there any collaboration that's going on across Europe of things that we could work on and those sort of things? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah. That again is a great question, and actually even in Finland we have this problem that we are not thinking big enough. We should actually have a plan like 5 or 10 years ahead. What should we have in 2035? What kind of investments or what kind of innovations would that require from us in terms of AI or in terms of digitalization or some other disruptive new technology? And we should build our collaboration models on top of that, because I think I cannot really say that, hey, with the UK company, this and that, we should collaborate without really knowing the context. So we should, I know it's kind of lame, but I think we should have better vision or strategy And I don't know if they have any in US, but at least they have the greatest visionaries of our planet who have all the resources to implement their visions. So since we don't have that as a single person or business leaders in Europe, sorry for that, saying that aloud, I think maybe our politicians should put some great minds together and try to create one for us as a Europe.
Well, Karoliina, do you have any questions back to Geoff or I for today?
Oh yes, I would like to hear your thoughts from UK, or what are the greatest things you are doing that we should learn from, and we could possibly steal from you guys.
I'll let you answer that one, Geoff.
Yeah, it's a very good question. But I think the examples I gave earlier, we've done some really great stuff here in the UK with companies like Arm, like DeepMind, and so on. With in terms of the AI and sort of chip space and that kind of stuff, my feeling is really that if you look at Mistral, for example, in France, brilliant large language model they've put together. I was reading recently that people feel that perhaps it's lacked from investment capital, and this is the thing the Americans do incredibly well, isn't it? There's just so much money available in the US to put into this. I mean, every week you read about how one of these foundation model companies, whether it's OpenAI, whether it's Grok, or somebody has gone and raised more capital to build the models faster. And I think we shouldn't be chasing those kind of models. I think that's done. But what I'm very excited about is that all of this technology is there. Whether it's things like OpenAI, whether it's using Llama, Grok, any of these kind of models, all the technology is there. And I think the niche for us, if you like, from the UK and Europe as a whole, is to take those technologies and do very clever things with them. So some of the things I'm working on at the moment, some customers, actually interesting with a European customer actually, is all around search. So one of the things, and I've talked about it a few times on this podcast, is that Google's dominance is now over. That will be a big trend next year. More and more search is moving into tools like ChatGPT, into tools like Copilot, for example, as well. So that's going to fundamentally change how all that happens. But also using natural language searching, using a large language model, you can do some very, very clever stuff on things like B2C sites, B2B, e-commerce type sites, where you can engage customers differently and into interactive experiences. So I think for us, what we've got to do is take all of these tools and go and build some amazing products around it. And I think that's something we're very, very good at in Europe, is working with our customers, understanding those problems. I'm very, very excited about what's going to happen next year around agents as well. My feeling is that AI assistants have really taken off. All the work I've done with clients, everybody recognizes that you've got shadow AI, where you've got lots of workers who've just gone off and got their own ChatGPT accounts and started using things themselves. I think what we'll see going into next year is that lots of those customers I've worked with, they're just moving people across to using approved tools and things with AI. And there's going to come a moment where everybody's going to be saying, well, hang on, why do I keep putting the same thing into ChatGPT, or triggering the same GPTs, or into the same prompt into Copilot? Why don't we just automate this? And this is where the agent stuff is really going to flow through. So huge opportunity for all of us to build our agents, I think, going into next year. And there's some really clever ways you can do that. There's lots of frameworks there which are available, but also just using, as we talked about this podcast before, for larger enterprise, which is where I spend most of my time working, tools like UiPath, Microsoft Power Automate, all of those kind of robotic process automations, I think, are going to come through with lots of agents. So I'm actually very excited for next year to look at where we're going to deploy agents. And the fundamental thing this comes back to is finding business problems, is just go and ask lots and lots of customers. And I think one of the things I'm very interested in, actually, I think we could all do better in our ecosystems, whether it's in the UK or in Finland perhaps as well, is how can we get startups getting more time in front of customers, potential customers, to understand what are the business problems they've got, because that's where you make really valuable companies is when you understand a customer's problem and you can solve it. That's something I really enjoy doing. And I think there's lots of great stuff going on where we've got lots of ecosystems where in particular niches, for example, you mentioned healthcare as well. It's just getting there in front of those customers, talking to them, understanding where the problems are, and then coming up with creative solutions. And we're always very, very good in Europe at coming up with creative solutions of problems, I think. So I don't know if that quite answered your question, Karoliina, but some good points to talk through there.
It was anyway a great speech. So
I think I can add my thoughts on that as well. Obviously, having spent time in both countries, which is, one of the contrasts is, I think it's a little bit easier in Finland when you're a startup in terms of getting support at the beginning. There are lots of vehicles in the UK as well, but for example, yesterday we did a press announcement for the Panastamo hub in Kuopio, Eastern Finland, that we just got some funding from ely-keskus. So we're going to be able to help more startups. People like myself offer pro bono support for those startups, but then they can go to people like Business Finland for innovation grants, and there's also soft loans and a lot of support such as export guarantees, etc. In a country like Finland, it's all about international markets. Where we then tend to struggle a little bit is when I talk to startups and scale-ups here, they're normally talking to Finnish angel investors, Finnish VCs. They're not really talking to firms outside of Finland, and I don't really get that. If you look at the UK, you've got Innovate UK, and there are vehicles, but typically the UK is seen as a little bit more international for attracting investments. And I don't think there's any reason why Finnish firms can't be attracting international investment, because we've got so many good case studies now. Like I mentioned, Silo AI already today, but we've had Volt, etc. And you take a country like Estonia, for a long time with businesses like Wise, etc. They've managed to attract that international investment. So I think we can do more of that here in Finland. Where the UK's got to be careful is, it seems like a lot of UK firms have been looking to list in the US rather than the UK of late. But there was some contrast. So Canal Plus, I believe, have listed a listing a new company in the UK because they wanted to keep it within Europe, and many millions of their subscribers are in the UK. So they're trying to stay very European focused still. So I think we need to look in Finland in general, in our later stage investments, to be a bit more international in terms of who we want as our investors.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I'm a bit surprised to hear your analysis, because at least the most successful startups we speak with, they are very international. They live on the airplane and airport and basically travel all the time. But that might be kind of the tip of the iceberg. And in reality, the most startups, they try to get the funding from Finland, which is probably the best choice. But luckily we have Slush, which at least brings the investors here. So our startups doesn't really have to go abroad to meet the international VCs.
We have a couple of clients at Null Venture that have a very international cap table. And so I think you said it was key there, which is the successful startups are very international.
Right. Yeah. But that's a good message that we should actually remind startups about.
Yeah. Well, it's been an excellent conversation today, Karoliina. I think that the conversations will continue, and I hope we will be able to cooperate more. And we're looking forward to seeing these 500 startups come through, and the engagement with the larger organizations. I think this is a good time to sort of conclude our Leading with GenAI podcast for this week. I know you have a hard stop and a busy day ahead of you still as well. So, Karoliina, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Geoff.
Thanks, guys. Goodbye.